Hi. To begin, my name is Maxwell Wagner. This is my Honors 1010 final project. This is the visual portion. So let us begin. So on slide 2, argument 1, the overarching theme. I chose the overarching theme as oversimplification by characters or the jumping to conclusions by these certain characters. This is present from the beginning of the course all the way to the end of the course in examples that I'll show here presently. This theme makes characters worse off, and it affects them all actually in a very unique way from book to book or from reading to reading. But overall, these oversimplifications and conclusions actually end up worsening the effects of what happens to the character throughout their own novels. To begin, in argument 1, like I said, in the very beginning of the book with Good Country Folk, the mother eventually ends up jumping to the conclusion that the Bible salesman, as we know, is just a good old salt of the earth kind of guy. Someone who means no harm and is actually someone nice to have around, and she ends up wishing that more people were more like him in the end of the book. Which, as we see, actually causes her daughter a lot of pain and is not overall conducive for a good environment. And what ends up happening is the Bible salesman's actually kind of a creep. He just ends up looking around for people with abnormalities and tries to take what makes them unique. And this causes again the daughter a lot of pain. And it's like what we see in other parts of the novel. When we go to in the middle or more towards the end, I guess. In argument 1 with Ash in the Black Mirror episode. At his funeral, a friend who assumes they know what is best for the character ends up setting her on an experimental service, and this just brings us down a rabbit hole of effects. The friend ends up causing her not to be able to move on, not to have any really more healthy relationships with normal people anymore, because as we saw, she was afraid to have her sister over in the house, and it just never allowed her to move on and never to have a healthy relationship again. And as we saw in the first one, an oversimplification by a certain individual about another character's wants and needs or desires ends up actually causing a lot of harmful effects, in this case with the never being able to move on and the harmful relationships with others. This one actually has a lot more in common with hunger, because it's someone doing it in their best interest, their oversimplification. The friend only assumes that her only issue is the loneliness for Ash, but doesn't consider anything else, which what we'll see in the third book. These are the three big points. We could obviously find more in the essay, but hunger, the parents assume that her only problem was her weight. So these are people who I think throughout the book you can tell that have who want the best for her, but don't actually know what's going on in her life and assume that her only problem is her weight. So this ends up down again on a whole other rabbit hole of issues. Like they put her on diets that give her kidney stones. They send her to a camp where she ends up getting addicted to smoking. So because of this, she ends up with more problems and than she had originally, which just complicates the issue and makes everything a lot harder for her. This is really close again with the Ash example, because it's someone who I think in their best interest wants what's good for them, but ends up actually having a lot of bad problems in the end, causing a lot of problems for them. So to move on to argument 2, persuasive. So in this argument, which character is the most persuasive to me? The most persuasive person in this course for me was the Bible salesman, actually. This caused a lot of real world ramifications and effects on me personally. I would like to think that I'm a very trusting and open person. I like to think that I'm very generous with a lot. I like to pay for a lot of people's meals. I like to really invest my time in people, and people like the Bible salesman who like to use people, who just really trying to insert themselves into situations and really just take all for themselves, is the exact opposite to what I think that I am, and it just really shook me to my core, because you'd think that someone like the Bible salesman, who's supposed to be a good Catholic person, who comes off as a good Catholic person, as a Catholic myself, realizing that when he switched to who he was actually shook me. I tend to get really invested in whatever I'm reading or watching or just listening to. So when that happened, I ended up just like going back over in my head all my relationships. It's like, are these relationships actually good for me? So in this way, it actually caused me to have some sort of real world reaction to what happened with the Bible salesman, because he's so polar opposite to my aspirations in life. It actually shook me to my core. And on this argument, the counter argument, well, it could actually be said that hunger had a bigger effect on me. These stories were very shocking and caused me to change how I actually view the world. This has to do with the fact that how I was raised. Like I love my parents and everything like that. I love my family, but I was raised more with um, like a male dominated area, because I look towards my dad as like my role model. All my cousins are male. I went to an all boys school basically my entire life. I've only went to Catholic schools, so I've never really had to think about like how people have to act in the world. Like I've always loved going on night walks, and to think about someone having to like not go on a night walk because they're scared of the dark, or they're scared because someone's walking behind them. I've never had to think about this before. That's never something that I've had to worry about because I'm a bigger guy, so it's just never something I've considered. However, this I don't think has changed me overall more, because it's a change in how I view the world. But I don't know how to cause a change in this for me. I'd like to take other courses offered through Toledo to help me like continue this view, like this worldview change, but it didn't have that actual like real world, like me going through my texts and like evaluating my relationships. It did open a new door to me, so hopefully I'll continue to go through that, but it didn't have the immediate like relationship checking, like the actual jarring, stopping me on like I think I was listening to it on a bike and I stopped when I like the Bible salesman did all that. So and then three, this has to do with like an issue and all the like the books and all the things and how we would solve them. So I chose the family, and how having a solid family structure in a lot of these books would actually solve like the problems that they had in the book. So throughout the course, we can see a lot of aspects of parenthood, and like broken family structures. I think this first comes up in Good Country Folk. Um, I, I think in that you can see like the lack of a father, in my opinion, actually could change how everything goes. Um, I think that like back then, especially, you can like get the stereotypically overprotective father figure who would never let their little girl out in the woods with some stranger on the first date. So I think if like if you think of it just as simple as that, but having a more sturdy home, like having someone else there to like look after her, so it's not just like all dependent on one person, it would make it easier for like the daughter not to be put in a situation where she ends up getting in the loft and then her leg and her glasses stolen from her. So I think that you can see that there, that like the broken family structure actually affected her directly there. And in Awakening, we actually see two problems, both the mother and the father not being like dedicated parents, because we can see that the father disappears all the time. He's always at the hotel. And like he argues that like I think he thinks that he's a good father because he gives them all the money, but it's proven that like just because like you give them all that they need financially doesn't mean that they like you giving them everything that they need like emotionally or supportively. So I think the father is really absent, even though that he's financially supportive, and the mother towards the end is exactly like the father, just completely absent, sends the kids off to another house just to be away with them. And like this can't be good on the children. And as we saw in the actual story, it wasn't good for the children. What ended up happening is we saw one instance where the kids actually got injured and didn't even look for their parents. Like they have no knowledge of an actual supportive family in their memory, because they would have at least looked around for someone else to help them. They would have at least sought help after that, but they don't actually know their avenues towards help because both of the family, both the mother and the father, are actually kind of absent. And with this, you might actually say that, like, in Hunger, their family was actually very dedicated, and this was still a problem. But I would like to offer the argument that if she would have come from a broken family where the father or the mother didn't have as much time to actually like sit down with the daughter and talk about what the problem she's facing, or even like didn't have enough time to like care for her situation, situations could have been even worse. I think they would have been a lot worse if this would have happened in a less dedicated or a broken family. So a well put together family structure has proven benefits on a whole list of just a bunch of things. They perform better in classes. They have like just better social. The list goes on and on. Like the reason I put it in a link is because I like when I first typed this in for my research, the first one was 40 results for what it was, and I'm not gonna put all 40 in a PowerPoint because it would take much longer to discuss all that. But there's just a numerous list of all the benefits that happen from a well-supported, a well-founded structural family. So, and then on slide 9, argument 3, how we solve for the broken family. Um, I think that we do this by taking back popular culture about the two-parent homes. I think that supporting media outlets that actually like having two parents in the home. I'm not just saying like man, woman, like just having a two-parent household is what is more beneficial for the child, and having society praise that again instead of just having like the single mother, single father raising the kids. Promote the idea of a good family, actually having like I think more sit down conversations, bring back the family dinner. I understand it's really hard in like our modern times because we really just get fast food and we go, but promoting the family dinner, promoting a good family, promoting a family that like goes on vacations together, a family that listens to each other, I think will help solve the broken family issue, and it'll just help everybody communicate about their problems and have a more um, just beneficial arrangement for all them. This one's a little weird. Changing the divorce law so that broken families don't have to stay together. I think it should be easier, less hassle, and yeah, overall easier for divorces to happen. That way, like broken families don't have to stay together because they don't feel too tied to each other. And kind of on like the flip of that, actually giving tax and other incentives to promote marriage and to promote people to actually be together and declare that the two-parent household status. So they actually like take the final steps in becoming a two-parent home. I think that's very beneficial for overall like society and like fixing the broken family is just so that they actually feel they both get the child gets the benefit of having the two parent home, and then like the parents get the benefit of not only having happier kids but having better like incentives like taxes or whatever we promote for better marriage, and to overall make it easier for couples to just be together, just allowing avenues or whatever it takes to make it so that the broken family can stay together or to not have the broken family in the beginning. And then this is the source for the 40 facts about two-parent homes. That was like one of the first things that came up. There was a whole list more. So if we want to talk about the benefits of a two-parent household, there's plenty more to go on than what I just found there. So this is the end of my presentation. I hope you enjoyed. I hope it wasn't too boring. I hope that you liked it. Thanks for listening.